All right, and we back on the forecast. So out in Pittsburg, California, a brother by the name of Terry Amons was shot and killed by police while he was sitting in his own car trying to get a hamburger. Now let's see what this brother could have did that led him to get shot by the police.
It's just like heartbreaking.
Richard Duncan is mourning the loss of the man you see here being carried away in a stretcher, his cousin, who Duncan says was shot to death Friday night by a Pittsburgh police officer. Police say the man was 43 years old and from Antioch, rushed to John Muir Hospital in bad shape after the shooting, and that's where he was pronounced dead. Duncan and his family confirm with KRON 4 that his name was Terry Amons.
We're just lost right now, and we just know we got a murdered family member that's just never gonna come back.
Pittsburgh police say late Friday night, officers pulled up to the Nation's restaurant on Railroad Avenue, responding to a report of a possible drug deal happening in the parking lot between people in two different cars. By the time officers arrived, one car had left. Police say two officers approached the car still in the lot. Lori Bedell, who is also Terry Amons' cousin, says that Amons was behind the wheel. Police say the officers noticed a gun in the car and told the man inside to put his hands up and to leave the gun alone. At first, police say the man complied, then later reached for and tried to pull up his gun. That's when investigators say one officer opened fire, striking the man.
I think that it's totally BS. I couldn't see him complying as to putting his hands up and then going to reach his gun. First of all, he knows he's outnumbered. He sees what's been happening in society every day, that, you know, these police have no issue with killing whoever you are, but mostly black men. So I couldn't see him trying to reach for his gun if there was a gun in the car.
Police are calling this an all-around tragic situation. Amons' family believes it's possible the shooting was captured on the restaurant's surveillance cameras. Some Pittsburgh police officers wear body cameras, so it may have been captured that way as well. Terry Amons' family describes their cousin as a church-going father. The Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office is involved in the investigation.
So this brother who was sitting in his own car, when somebody called the police claiming they saw some kind of drug transaction, I guess they confused him with a white boy trying to get meth or something. But this person calls the police. Now, I don't know anybody who would do a drug transaction and sit in a busy parking lot after the transaction is over until the police finally show up. But when they do show up, Officer Dillon Tindall and his partner approached the car, and they say they saw a handgun sitting in the middle console. Now, in California, even though they tried to change a lot of laws after the Black Panthers showed up and started talking about the Second Amendment, you still are allowed to have a gun. You're allowed to travel in a car with a gun. That is not a crime. Then police say initially he complied with the police. He put his hands up, did whatever they told him to do. And then they claim out of nowhere he dropped his right arm like he was reaching for the gun. And when he put his arm back in the air, Officer Dillon Tindall shot him. Now, I don't know who would grab for a gun when I'm sure the police were standing right over top of them with their guns on them. I'm not sure who would just go reach for their gun, but they say he did.
Family and friends gathered at the Nation's restaurant Saturday night for a candlelight vigil to mourn the loss of 43-year-old Terry Amons, who was shot and killed by Pittsburgh police in the parking lot the night before around 10:45.
My son usually He works at 2:30 in the morning and he'd be home sleep. But he happened to want to come out and get him a hamburger, and he never returned.
They say a witness called in an alleged drug deal, so officers approached the car and saw Amons with a gun at his side. At first, they say he complied, and then they claim that he reached for it, and that's when they shot him. His family doesn't believe the story.
By me knowing my cousin, I just feel like I don't think that he would have took it as far as going for a weapon.
They say Amons was a family man who'd changed his ways and went to church every Sunday.
I've been stripped for everything I know and love, somebody that raised me and taught me how to produce, and I'm supposed to think that an officer just happened to think he was reaching for a gun. I think the officer is reaching for a gun.
They believe Amons fell victim to racial profiling.
There's too many black folks getting killed out here for no reason, like every other day. Like, when is it going to stop? You know? And then what they tell us is we kill each other. Okay, we don't need help with that then.
It's a sad thing, man. It's real sad how the cops just can keep just killing a black man for no reason. So it hurts.
Now, they never said what kind of drugs he had or how much he had on him. They didn't say how many shots they fired. But they did say they got him out of the car and gave him CPR and first aid until the paramedics came. But they had already shot him. Now, the Pittsburg PD offers his condolences, and they tell you how much a tragedy it is. But we gotta wait for all the facts and see how things play out. Now, we're probably not gonna hear any more about that random caller, but this type of thing happens all the time. That's how quick it can go from you walking down the street to you being murdered by the police. But this is nothing new. Instead of calling them patty rollers, now we call them police officers. We know about the school-to-prison pipeline, and when you're in prison, you're not protected under the 13th Amendment, meaning you are a slave. They talk about Mexicans taking jobs away from black people. Well, what about the prison system? If you can hire inmates for 30 cents a day, why would you hire anybody else? Look at how much tax dollars they put into the prison system, a lot of which are going to private companies who have shareholders and a board they have to keep happy, and they have to keep prison cells full. Criminalizing black people is a zillion-dollar industry. Ever since the concept of race was created, people have made a fortune off of it at our expense. We're begging for justice in a system that was built and funded by your oppression. It got its power off of your blood. So why would they then turn around and give you justice? The only way you're going to get justice, first you organize locally, then you organize nationally, and then you organize globally. But divide and conquer stops all that organization. But hundreds of years of our blood being shed should be enough to put aside our tribalisms, to put aside our differences, in order to create justice for ourselves.
Tonight, an exclusive 5 on Your Side investigation reveals allegations of a police cover-up, suppressing evidence, and prosecutor misconduct. It involves a murder case that sent 3 Cleveland teenagers to prison for the last 20 years. On Your Side, Chief Investigator Ron Regan joins us live. And Ron, you have learned about key evidence that could set them free.
Well, that's right. But first, this is a letter from the prosecutor at the time ordering police not to release a shred of evidence and make sure evidence never becomes public. This was the scene the night of February 10th, 1995. It's here where a teenager was shot to death in the 1700 block of Strathmore Avenue in East Cleveland. And since then, these 3, who were also teenagers at the time, have spent the last 20 years in prison for murder. But today, we found new evidence suggests that what happened here is not what police and prosecutors claimed for 2 decades. Court records we obtained show a single eyewitness has recanted her testimony. Original police reports disclose new evidence, including a new eyewitness, and this letter from prosecutors that kept every shred of evidence locked up for years. It directs police to turn over the entire department file, including all items in the Detective Bureau and records room, to the prosecutor's office, insisting they are not public records. Tomorrow, Eugene Johnson, Derek Wheat, and Laurice Glover will be in a Cuyahoga County courtroom where evidence never before seen could win all 3 a new trial. Well, the Ohio Innocence Project has been behind this case and will argue all 3 defendants are entitled to a new trial because prosecutors suppressed favorable evidence. The prosecutor's office tells me late this afternoon that it has turned over evidence in the past and that this case has already been litigated in the state and federal courts for years. We'll be in the courtroom tomorrow and we'll bring you a full report. Live in the newsroom, I'm Chief Investigator Ron Regan.
Just incredible. And Ron, this is the latest case called into question. Late last year, Wiley Bridgman, his brother Ronnie, who now goes by the name Kwame Ajamu, and Ricky Jackson were released after spending nearly 40 years in prison for a crime they didn't commit. The men were convicted in 1975 of murdering a man based on the testimony of a 12-year-old witness who later admitted he lied.
On Monday, fourth grade students at Our Redeemer Lutheran School were handed a group assignment in English class. The question, give 3 good reasons for slavery and 3 bad reasons.
It's highly offensive and insensitive. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that they had sent something like that home.
Tramika Brown-Berry is the mother of a 9-year-old boy in that class.
Not only just my son was in an awful position, but also the students who weren't black, because it's that sort of mentality of not being able to see from another's perspective and only seeing through your lens. That's what's dangerous. That's what keeps racism going.
School principal Jim Van Dellen declined to speak with us on camera, but admits the assignment was out of line. In a letter sent home to parents and students Tuesday, Van Dellen says the purpose of the assignment was not in any way to have students argue that any slavery is acceptable. He says the assignment is no longer part of the curriculum, something Van Dellen says was intended to spark debate in class.
And for it to be a Christian school, they could have said something like, what are 3 good things that we can do to prevent slavery from happening?
The principal is vowing to better communicate sensitive subjects being discussed in class with parents before presenting it to students. Brown-Berry says this homework should be a lesson to us all, and the reason she posted it online.
Speak up, tell your story, voice your opinion, because that is how you go about change, and that's what I was trying to model for my son.
I just spoke with Versailles Police Chief Charles Roca. He says that Melissa Adamson resigned last night. He says she was on the force part-time for less than a year. We first showed you the photo, the Snapchat picture of Officer Adamson in full uniform with the text, "I'm the law today," and a racial slur. That photo led to her firing yesterday from her part-time job at McKeesport Police. We spoke to Adamson after that firing, and she apologized.
I'm sorry for who I did offend. It was not my intentions. I can't express how sorry I am for how I made you feel or how I made you feel emotionally, physically, or whatnot. Again, it wasn't my intentions.
That's what Adamson had to say after being fired from McKeesport last night. Now, with word about her resignation in Versailles, we caught up with neighbors who had their own thoughts on the matter.
That's unacceptable. I think they should have fired her. Absolutely.
Adamson says the photo wasn't taken during her 2 weeks on the job in McKeesport, but is from several months ago when she worked for Pitcairn. She says it was reposted to Facebook by someone trying to hurt her. But no matter when it was taken, some in the community say it never should have happened.
She shouldn't have done it, you know. Being a officer of the city, someone representing the community, she should be doing things in the correct manner to, set the correct tempo for the city.
Using slurs and slang language, it doesn't, it makes society what it is today, and that's where all the problems stimulate from.
I know.
Listen to the whole thing.
No, I know, and cause I know you, so I get that. Yeah. Oh my God, bro, this is actually fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, so now I'm basically socially shunned, my room, I literally am transferring, I think I may go to Tampa, or next year I know I want to go to Arizona.
Bitch, they don't want you.
Wait.
It sucks, because I love Alabama.
No, I know. Wait, is Ariel talking to you?
I mean, no, Ariel basically is now transferring to Tampa because what happened was she DM'd the person and said, take this video of my friend down.
That was
and,
me.
I didn't tell her to do that. She didn't.
Hold up. Oh, hell. Tab fucking up. I'm like,
shouldn't have done that. And now they're screenshotting her fit with Trump, and she's like, I'm done, I can't do this. And she's going to Tampa.
What? Bitch, Tampa don't want her racist ass either.
Holy shit.
I feel horrible. I was wrong, but everyone just told it the wrong way.
This bitch stupid.
Dude, no one can get the fuck
That's so... Oh my god. I actually cannot believe this.
I think it's just bullshit. I think it's, like, I know how wrong I am, but it has been taken to a whole other level. It's so fucked up. Like,
It's literally...
I'm socially shunned from this fucking school now.
Oh my god. I'm like actually shocked. Like, I can't believe this.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss everyone so fucking much.
Aw.
Oh my god.
But like, dude, I literally have to start like a new life now. Like, I'm either gonna go to community college in Florida or California, and then like
Cali don't want your racist ass.
next year.
Holy shit. So like, do you think you're gonna stay this semester? I know this is like so crazy.
No, like I can't stay. I can't go anywhere. The Rounders bouncers tweeted about it, so I'm done with Rounders. Damian Harris tweeted about it. Like, this whole campus has it out for me. I got fucking Bridget. I have news people emailing me.
What?
Yes. Wait. News fucking emailed me. I had a fucking call with this guy earlier, and he's like, we're not going to put this anywhere because, like, we don't know, like, we don't want to make your situation worse. Like, oh, yeah. Oh, dude, it's fucking everywhere. I mean, I'm famous now, but...
You're literally trending on Twitter.
It says she famous.
3-person trending on Twitter, like, nationwide.
Please, it's a screenshot. Oh my god.
Wait, I need to find it. What?
Literally I wanted a career in politics. Looks like that's out the window.
Oh my god.
I just cannot believe it.
Wait, do your parents know yet?
I'm like not close with my parents at all, but my grandma knows, and my one grandparents know, and they're like racist as fuck. And then like my grandpa's racist as fuck, and he's like, well, my mom is just like, Harley, you just need to learn from your mistakes.
Over with.
Figure out what the fuck you're gonna do.
She done.
Get a fucking education and have a good time. Like, we won a national championship. I fucked 9 Pike, and I fucked a football player.
She balling. I am pretty much in danger.
I literally had my crying stage, and now I'm on my bullshit stage. Like, I'm back
She
on
back
my
on her
bullshit. I'm gonna
bullshit.
go get fucking skinny and drink green shit every day and fucking... I don't even know.
Honestly, if I were you right now, like, I'd be freaking out, but I feel like you just, like, should be away from your phone. Because, like, I feel like that would give me anxiety. Like, I feel like...
I deleted everything.
Yeah, like, I feel like it's, like, giving you anxiety.
I don't know. I just gotta clean this fucking house. Like, my family, my best friend is going... I might go to visit my friend at Eugene this weekend, so...
Oh, my God. Holy shit. I, like, actually can't believe it. No, yeah, I can't either.
I'm literally gonna miss you guys so fucking much.
I know.
I know there's a bunch of girls in Alpha P that hate me right now, but, like, I try to apologize. Like, they fucking hate me. I emailed Nationals. Like, honestly, everyone that hates me, like, you fucking suck. Like, I don't know. Like, everyone that knows me knows I'm just funny as shit. Like, I'm not a malicious person. Like, I literally don't have speed mode in my body unless a girl fucking fucks with me, I'll freak her ass up. Other than that...
I know. No, I know. That's why it's, like, frustrating.
And my like, ex-boyfriend type thing has been, like, calling me and, like, these are not the terms I'm gonna talk to you on. Like, I fucking have talked to you so many times before, now you wanna talk.
My God.
So, yeah, alright, listen. I will text you or call me later. Like, my phone is, like, blowing up.
Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you again. Got a gun in his back pocket.
I told you to stop. I told you I'm finna set it down.
Get down, now!
I just told you I'm finna set it down.
Get down on your knees. I'm not gonna fucking tell you again.
Can you stop pointing the gun?
No, get down on your knees. I'm not gonna tell you again.
Can you stop pointing the gun at me?
I'm not gonna tell you again.
What you gonna do, shoot me? I'm not.
Whoever's coming in on commerce, you're in a crossfire, so be careful.
Get on the wall, I just told you.
Keep your hands out where I can fucking see them. Go down on your knees. Gun in the back pocket, Ron. Don't touch the gun. Just fucking turn around.
Bag up. I'm telling you to bag up, man. I just told him to bag up if I can set the gun down. He keep walking.
Don't touch the gun. Go down on your knees now.
I'm not going on my knees, so bag up. So I set the gun.
Y'all got him.
Stop walking up on me. Don't do that. Don't hit me with that.
Fucking tase your ass. I'm gonna fucking tase you.
Bag up.
Everybody good? You good, Ron? Are you good?